The human baby was left for dead in the wasteland, but grew up on dragon milk. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. In a world of ash and decay, where the sky burned copper and the ground cracked with thirst, a single cry pierced the desolation, the wail of an abandoned human infant. The wasteland stretched endlessly in every direction, a broken landscape formed by wars long forgotten and ecological devastation that followed. Wind whipped across the barren plains, carrying dust and memories of a world that once flourished. Few creatures survived here, and fewer still thrived. This was no place for the delicate, pink-skinned infant that lay wrapped in tattered cloth atop a rocky outcropping. Mara the Fire Scale, last of the great ashen dragons, sensed the change in her territory immediately. Something foreign, something vulnerable had entered her domain. With wings spread wide against the burning sky, she circled high above, her crimson scales reflecting the harsh sunlight. Humans were rare in the wasteland, adults even rarer, but a baby? Unheard of. She landed with a grace belying her massive form, talons delicately avoiding the small bundle that continued to emit pitiful cries. Mara lowered her enormous head, nostrils flaring as she inhaled the infant's scent. "How curious," she rumbled, her voice like distant thunder. "Who would leave something so fragile here, in death's playground?" The baby boy, no more than a few days old, squirmed beneath the dragon's inspection. His cries had weakened, his tiny body already succumbing to the wasteland's harsh conditions. Dehydration had set in, his lips cracked, his movements growing feeble. Mara knew she should leave the infant to the wasteland's mercy, or lack thereof. Dragons did not involve themselves with human affairs. Not anymore. Not since humans had hunted her kind to near extinction. Her remaining clutchmates had fled to the distant mountains years ago, leaving her alone to guard the ancient nesting grounds. Yet something stirred within her ancient heart as she observed the helpless creature. Perhaps it was the memory of her own hatchlings, lost to human hunters. Perhaps it was simple curiosity. Or perhaps, after centuries of solitude, she simply longed for companionship. With a decision made, Mara gently lifted the infant in her front claw. She would take him to her cave, give him water, and when his strength returned, decide what to do with him. It was not kindness, she told herself, merely an interesting diversion in her long, lonely existence. "You will probably die anyway," she told the baby as she took flight. "But at least it will not be today." The cave system that Mara called home stretched deep into the mountains at the wasteland's edge. Ancient and vast, the tunnels had been carved by her ancestors thousands of years ago, when dragons ruled the skies and humans cowered in primitive shelters. Now, they provided sanctuary for the last of her kind. Inside the main chamber, Mara placed the infant on a bed of soft ash she used for resting. The baby had gone quiet during their flight, eyes wide with what might have been wonder or simply shock. Now, in the relative coolness of the cave, he began to whimper again. "Hungry, are you?" Mara mused. "I have no human food here." She considered her options. Dragons were not nurturers by nature, especially not of other species. But she did have one resource that might sustain the human child. Dragon milk, produced for her own hatchlings that never had the chance to hatch, still occasionally filled her mammary glands beneath her chest scales. It was potent stuff, meant to help dragonlings grow strong quickly, rich with nutrients and ancient magic. "This will either nourish you or kill you," she told the infant solemnly. "But I suspect death awaits you either way." With careful precision, Mara extracted a small amount of the pearlescent fluid into a shallow stone bowl. She dipped her talon tip into the milk and brought it to the baby's lips. The infant instinctively sucked at the liquid, his tiny hands reaching up. To Mara's surprise, the baby did not perish upon consuming the dragon milk. Instead, color returned to his pale cheeks, and his cries grew stronger, more demanding. "Interesting," she murmured, providing more of the milk. "Very interesting indeed." Days passed, then weeks, then months. The human child not only survived on dragon milk, but thrived. Mara named him Ash, for the bed in which he slept and the color of his eyes, which had transformed from human blue to a stormy gray with flecks of silver, an unexpected side effect of the dragon milk. Ash grew faster than Mara anticipated a human child would. By his first year, he was already walking confidently around the cave, exploring every crevice with fearless curiosity. His dark hair had grown thick and wild, with a peculiar streak of crimson that matched Mara's scales. Dragon milk builds dragon strength, Mara told him when he asked why he could lift stones that seemed too heavy for his small frame. You are becoming something new, little one. Neither fully human nor dragon, but something in between. By the time Ash reached 5 years of age, Mara began teaching him about the wasteland and its dangers. Together they would fly above their territory, the boy secured firmly in her claws, learning to identify safe water sources, predators to avoid, and edible plants that stubbornly clung to life in the harsh environment. Why don't we ever see other people? Ash asked one day as they soared over the cracked earth below. Are there others like me? Mara hesitated. There are other humans, yes, but they live far from here, in settlements beyond the wasteland. And they are not like you, Ash. You are unique. Because I drink dragon milk? Yes. And because you live with a dragon rather than fearing one. As he grew older, Ash's questions became more complex, more difficult to answer. He wanted to know why he had been abandoned, why humans and dragons did not live together, why the world had become such a broken place. Mara told him what she knew, of the great wars between humans that had scorched the earth, of the subsequent hunting of dragons for their blood and scales, believed to provide protection against the poisoned air and water. She told him how humans had destroyed much of the world in their quest for power, then sought to destroy dragons when their own resources ran dry. Yet you saved me, Ash said, now a boy of 10, his gray eyes reflecting the firelight as they sat at the cave entrance watching the sunset paint the wasteland in gold and crimson. Why save a human child when humans killed your kind? Mara considered this question carefully, as she had many times over the years. Perhaps I was curious. Perhaps I was lonely. Or perhaps I believed that in saving one human, raising him differently, I might someday change how our kind see each other. Ash nodded solemnly. I will never hurt dragons. I promise. I know, little one, Mara replied. But there are forces in this world beyond our control. Promises, even those made with the purest intentions, can be difficult to keep. When Ash reached his 12th year, the effects of the dragon milk became increasingly apparent. His reflexes were faster than any humans should be. His skin had developed a subtle, almost imperceptible pattern of scales that appeared when sunlight hit at certain angles. His eyes could see clearly in the dark, and his sense of smell rivaled that of the wasteland's predators. Most remarkably, when cut or injured, his blood steamed slightly before the wound closed with unprecedented speed. And when angry or afraid, wisps of smoke would sometimes curl from his nostrils. Am I becoming a dragon? He asked Mara excitedly after discovering he could exhale small puffs of flame after holding his breath. No, she answered, her ancient eyes studying him with fascination. But you are becoming something the world has never seen before. The dragon milk has changed you in ways even I did not anticipate. It was around this time that they first encountered other humans. A small group of wasteland scavengers, desperate and dangerous, had ventured close to their territory in search of resources. Mara sensed them before they came into view and quickly hid Ash in a narrow crevice of the cave. Stay silent, stay hidden, she instructed. These humans would not understand what you are. They would fear you, or worse, seek to use you. From his hiding place, Ash watched as Mara confronted the intruders. There were 5 of them, dressed in mismatched armor made from scavenged materials, their faces covered with masks to filter the wasteland's toxic air. They carried weapons, crude spears, and one firearm that looked barely functional. Dragon, one of them shouted, raising his spear. We seek only water and passage. We mean no harm. Mara's massive form blocked the cave entrance completely, her wings partially extended to make herself appear even larger. "This territory is mine," she growled. "Find water elsewhere." "Please," said another, a woman whose voice sounded hoarse through her mask. "We have traveled far. Our settlement was destroyed. We have nowhere to go." "That is not my concern," Mara replied coldly. "Humans destroyed this world. Your problems are of your own making." The man with the gun stepped forward. "We've heard stories about you, Last Dragon. They say your blood can heal radiation sickness, that your scales can purify water." Ash felt his heart race. He could smell the humans' desperation, their fear, but also their determination. They would not leave easily. "Those stories are myths," Mara lied. "Now go, before I lose my patience." "Just a small amount of blood," the man persisted, raising his weapon. "Our children are dying." What happened next unfolded with terrifying speed. The gun fired, the sound echoing through the cave. Mara roared in pain as the bullet grazed her neck, drawing blood. Instantly, she retaliated, her flame breath engulfing the gunman, turning him to ash in seconds. The other scavengers scattered, screaming, but Mara was faster. In her rage, she caught two more before they could escape, crushing them beneath her claws. The remaining two fled into the wasteland. Ash emerged from hiding, trembling at the violence he had witnessed. "You killed them," he whispered. Mara's breathing was heavy, her wounded neck already healing. "They would have killed me, Ash. They would have drained my blood until I died, all for their own survival. But they said they had children. And I had hatchlings once," Mara responded, her voice tight with ancient grief. "Humans destroyed them all. This is the way of the world we live in. Survival comes at a cost." That night, Ash could not sleep. The images of the humans burning, of their terrified screams, kept replaying in his mind. Yet he also felt a fierce protectiveness toward Mara. The humans had shot her, had threatened to take her blood. His loyalties were divided, pulling him in opposing directions. "I don't understand," he told Mara the next morning. "If humans are so terrible, why am I different? I am human too." Mara regarded him with tired eyes. "You were raised differently, Ash. Nurtured on dragon milk, taught dragon values. And perhaps some humans could change if given the chance." She paused. "But most are driven by fear and greed. It is safer to avoid them entirely." But avoiding humans became increasingly difficult. Word spread through the wasteland of the last dragon and her incredible healing blood. More scavengers came, then hunters specifically seeking dragon parts. Mara and Ash were forced to move deeper into the cave system, setting traps at the entrances, remaining vigilant at all times. As Ash entered his 15th year, his body continued to transform. He grew tall and strong, his muscles dense like Mara's. The faint scale pattern on his skin became more pronounced when he was emotional or in danger. His connection to Mara deepened as well. Sometimes he could sense her thoughts, feel her emotions as if they were his own. "We cannot hide forever," he told her one evening as they prepared to relocate yet again after fighting off another group of hunters. "We need a plan." Mara sighed, a sound like wind through ancient ruins. "What would you suggest, young one?" "We find a new home, somewhere humans cannot reach us. Or," he hesitated, "we try to make peace with them." Mara's laughter was bitter. "Peace. Humans do not want peace with dragons. They want what we can give them: blood, scales, bone. They see us as resources, not as living beings deserving of respect." "Not all humans," Ash insisted. "There must be some who would listen, who would understand. If they could see that dragons and humans could coexist, that dragon gifts freely given could help rebuild the world rather than just healing a few." "You are naive," Mara said, but there was affection in her voice. "Though I suppose I am responsible for that. I have kept you sheltered from the worst of humanity." "Then unshelter me," Ash challenged. "Let me go to them. I can show them what's possible. I'm living proof that humans and dragons can be more together than apart." Mara's expression grew alarmed. "Absolutely not. They would dissect you to discover your secrets, your blood, your abilities. You would become just another resource to exploit. But the seed had been planted in Ash's mind. As months passed, and they continued to fend off human incursions, he became increasingly convinced that he could serve as a bridge between the two species. His dual nature made him uniquely qualified to understand both perspectives. The opportunity came sooner than expected. During a hunting expedition, Ash spotted smoke rising from a small valley several miles from their new cave. Despite Mara's warnings, he convinced her to fly closer so they could investigate. Below them was a settlement unlike any they had seen before. Rather than the usual scavenger camps made of scrap metal and salvaged materials, this community had constructed actual buildings. They had a water purification system, gardens protected by transparent domes, and what appeared to be a school for children. "They're rebuilding," Ash said with wonder. "They're trying to make something better." Mara remained skeptical. Appearances can be deceiving. Their better may still include hunting dragons. Before they could retreat, they were spotted. Alarms sounded in the settlement, and people poured out of buildings, pointing upward. Some carried weapons, but they did not immediately fire. "They're waiting," Ash noted. "They're cautious, but not attacking." Yet, Mara added grimly. A voice amplified by some device called up to them. "Dragon, we mean no harm. We wish to speak." Ash's heart raced with excitement. "They want to talk. Mara, this could be our chance." "It could also be a trap," she countered, but he could sense her curiosity matching his own. After much debate, they agreed on a compromise. They would land at a safe distance from the settlement, and Ash would approach alone while Mara remained ready to intervene if necessary. It was dangerous, but potentially worth the risk if it meant an end to the constant fighting and hiding. As Ash walked toward the settlement gates, he felt the weight of possibility pressing on his shoulders. He was neither fully human nor dragon, but something new entirely. Perhaps that made him exactly what this broken world needed. Someone who could truly understand both sides, who carried the strength of dragons and the adaptability of humans. Behind him, Mara watched with a mixture of pride and fear. The human baby she had found abandoned in the Wasteland had grown into something extraordinary. Whether that would be enough to change centuries of conflict between their species remained to be seen. Ash reached the settlement gates where a small delegation waited. An older woman stepped forward, her weathered face showing cautious hope. "I am Natalie Quinn, leader of Haven," she said. "And you are?" Ash drew himself up to his full height, feeling the dragon aspects of himself stir beneath his skin. "My name is Ash," he replied, a wisp of smoke escaping with his words. "And I have a story you need to hear." Natalie Quinn studied Ash with a scientist's scrutiny. Her eyes lingered on his unusual features, the faint scale patterns that shimmered across his skin in the sunlight, the streak of crimson in his dark hair, the wisps of smoke that occasionally escaped his nostrils when he spoke passionately. "You say you were raised by the dragon," she said, her tone carefully neutral as they sat in Haven's council chamber. For other settlement leaders flanked her, their expressions ranging from fascination to open suspicion. "That she found you abandoned in the Wasteland." "Her name is Mara," Ash corrected firmly. "And yes, she saved me when I was an infant. Fed me dragon milk when there was nothing else. It changed me, as you can see." Ryan Mitchell, Haven's security chief, leaned forward. "And these changes, they give you dragon abilities? Strength? Fire?" Ash nodded cautiously. "Some. I'm stronger than a normal human. I heal quickly. I can exhale small flames if I concentrate." He deliberately omitted mentioning his enhanced senses and the mental connection he shared with Mara. Some secrets were best kept, at least until trust was established. "Fascinating," said an older man who had introduced himself as Owen Porter, Haven's lead scientist. "The biological implications alone are revolutionary. Dragon milk containing compounds that can fundamentally alter human physiology." "I didn't come here to be studied," Ash interrupted, sensing the dangerous direction of Porter's thoughts. "I came to propose an alliance between humans and dragons, or what's left of both our kinds." Natalie raised an eyebrow. "An alliance? Between humans and the creatures that can burn entire settlements to ash. The same creatures that many believe contributed to the Wasteland's formation in the first place. Those are lies, Ash said, smoke curling more prominently from his nostrils as anger flared within him. Dragons defended themselves during the wars, yes. But it was humans who dropped the bombs, humans who poisoned the earth and water. Dragons were victims, same as anyone else. He took a deep breath, calming himself as Mara had taught him. Showing his dragon aspects too prominently would only feed their fears. Listen to me, he continued, his voice steadier. Mara could have let me die in the Wasteland. Instead, she saved me, raised me as her own. That alone proves dragons aren't the monsters you think they are. One exception doesn't change the general rule, Mitchell countered. Maybe not, Ash conceded. But what if Mara isn't an exception? What if dragons and humans could help each other rebuild? Dragon blood has healing properties. Their fire can purify contaminated materials. Their scales can filter toxins from water. All resources we've harvested from dragons in the past, Natalie pointed out. Harvested? Ash scoffed. You mean stolen? Taken by force. What if instead these gifts were freely given? What if, in exchange for dragon help, humans offered protection, food, territory rights? The council members exchanged glances, some thoughtful, others skeptical. It's a compelling vision, Natalie finally said. But you're asking us to trust a creature that could destroy our entire settlement on a whim. A creature that belongs to a species that has historically seen humans as insignificant pests at best, prey at worst. And you're a species that hunted dragons to near extinction, Ash countered. Trust has to start somewhere. I'm living proof that coexistence is possible. Owen Porter cleared his throat. Perhaps we could start small. Controlled interactions. Exchanges of resources under strict protocols. I need to consult with Mara, Ash said. But I believe she would be open to it. She's tired of fighting, of hiding. We both are. After hours of negotiation, Ash left the settlement with a tentative agreement. In 3 days, Mara would meet with the council at a neutral location, a flat expanse of wasteland midway between Haven and their cave. Both sides would come unarmed, though Ash knew a dragon was never truly unarmed, and he suspected the humans would have weapons hidden nearby. When he returned to Mara and explained what had transpired, she was predictably skeptical. They will betray us, she rumbled, pacing the cave entrance. This is how it always begins. Talks of peace, promises of cooperation, then nets and spears when our guard is lowered. These people are different, Ash insisted. They're builders, not just scavengers. They have children they're trying to give a better future to. And they're curious about me, about what I represent. Your optimism will get us both killed, Mara sighed, but there was resignation in her voice. Still, I suppose we have few alternatives. We cannot run forever. The next 3 days passed in tense preparation. Ash taught Mara everything he had observed about Haven, their defenses, their apparent values, the way they had organized their society around education and rebuilding rather than mere survival. Mara, in turn, coached Ash on dragon diplomacy, which primarily involved recognizing deception and maintaining a position of strength without appearing overtly threatening. On the morning of the meeting, as they prepared to leave their cave, Mara paused. There is something I have never told you, she said solemnly. About the day I found you. Ash felt a chill run through him. What is it? You were not simply abandoned. You were left as a sacrifice. The words hit Ash like physical blows. A sacrifice? To what? To me, Mara said, her ancient eyes holding his. Or to whatever wasteland predator might claim you. The cloth you were wrapped in bore symbols, old human signs meant to appease dragons. You were an offering, Ash, from a human settlement desperate to keep dragons away from their territory. Ash struggled to process this revelation. Which settlement? Was it? No, not Haven, Mara assured him. That settlement is long gone now, destroyed by the same radiation storms they sought to avoid. But I tell you this now because you should understand what you're trying to bridge. Some humans saw you as disposable, as currency to buy their safety. And yet you saved me, Ash said quietly, when you could have seen me as just another human trick. I nearly did, Mara admitted. But then you opened your eyes and looked at me without fear. It was unexpected. The meeting place was exactly as Ash had described, a flat, barren expanse offering no advantages to either side. The Haven delegation arrived first. Natalie, Owen, Ryan, and two others Ash recognized from the council. They had brought a table, chairs, and what appeared to be document cases. A show of civilization amid desolation. When Mara appeared in the sky, Ash felt the humans' collective tension. Despite their brave words, none of them had ever been this close to a living dragon. Her massive form blocked the sun momentarily as she descended, landing with deliberate gentleness some distance from the table. They're afraid. Mara's voice resonated in Ash's mind. I can smell their fear. Stay calm, Ash thought back. Show them you're more than what they fear. He stepped forward, positioning himself between the two parties. Leader Quinn, council members of Haven, I present Mara Firescale, last of the great Ashen Dragons and my guardian. Natalie stepped forward, her face composed despite her obvious anxiety. On behalf of Haven, I welcome you, Mara. Your willingness to meet with us demonstrates courage we hope to match. Mara lowered her head slightly, not a bow, but an acknowledgement. I come at Ash's request. He believes peace between our kinds is possible. I remain to be convinced. As do we, Natalie replied honestly. But we're willing to try, for the sake of our children, and for the future of this broken world. What followed was unlike any diplomatic meeting in the Wasteland's history. Humans and dragon, sitting together under the copper sky, discussing terms for coexistence. Mara agreed to provide limited amounts of blood and scales for Haven's medical use, along with using her fire to help purify contaminated materials. In exchange, the settlement would declare dragon hunting illegal, provide information about other dragon sightings, and offer a portion of their harvests as tribute. As the negotiations progressed, Ash noticed Owen Porter growing increasingly agitated, frequently whispering to Natalie and scribbling notes. When they took a brief recess, Porter approached Ash privately. Your existence changes everything, he said, excitement evident in his voice. If we could reproduce the effects of dragon milk, create more humans with your abilities, imagine what that would mean for rebuilding civilization. Ash felt a prickle of unease. That's not what these talks are about, Porter. And dragon milk isn't something to be exploited. Don't you see the potential? Porter persisted. Humans with dragon strength and resilience could reclaim the wasteland faster than any technology we've developed. It could be the key to our species' survival. At what cost? Ash asked sharply. More dragons hunted for their milk? More experiments on human children? No. That's exactly the kind of thinking that destroyed the world in the first place. Porter's expression hardened. Sometimes progress requires sacrifice. The words echoed uncomfortably with what Mara had revealed about Ash's own origins. Before he could respond, Natalie called them back to the table. The negotiations resumed, but Ash remained unsettled by Porter's ambitions. By late afternoon, they had reached preliminary agreements on most points. Mara, while still guarded, seemed cautiously optimistic about the human's sincerity, all except Porter, whom she watched with naked suspicion. As they prepared to conclude the meeting, a sudden wind kicked up, carrying with it a familiar scent that made both Ash and Mara freeze. Dragons, Ash whispered, scanning the horizon. Impossible, Mara replied, but her body tensed as she too searched the skies. My clutchmates fled to the northern ranges years ago. None would return to these hunting grounds. But the scent grew stronger, and then they all saw it. Three-winged shapes approaching from the east, their scales gleaming gold, green, and blue against the dusty sky. More dragons, Natalie breathed, her face showing equal parts wonder and apprehension. You said you were the last. The last in these territories, Mara corrected, her voice betraying rare emotion. Those are Solarius, Verda, and Azurin, my clutchmates who fled north when the hunting grew worst. The Haven delegation grew visibly nervous as the dragons approached. Ryan Mitchell moved his hand toward his boot, where Ash suspected a weapon was hidden. "Stay calm," Ash advised the humans. "They're Mara's family." The three dragons landed with thunderous impacts, forming a semicircle behind Mara. They were each magnificent in their own way. Solarius with scales like burnished gold, Verda a deep emerald green with armored ridges along her spine, and Azurin a shimmering blue with silver-tipped wings. "Sister," Solarius addressed Mara, his voice deeper and more resonant than hers. "We followed rumors of a dragon treating with humans. We could not believe it was you." "These negotiations are mine to conduct," Mara replied firmly. "Why have you returned after all these years?" "The northern ranges have grown too cold," Verda explained. "Game is scarce, and humans have begun to encroach even there. We had no choice but to return," Azurin added, her silver eyes studying the human delegation with undisguised hostility. "And now we find you not only alive, but consorting with the very creatures who drove us from our ancestral grounds." Ash stepped forward. "My name is Ash. I was raised by Mara, nurtured on dragon milk. I'm trying to build peace between our kinds." The three dragons regarded him with astonishment. "You fed a human your milk?" Solarius asked Mara incredulously. "Have you lost your mind, sister?" "He was an infant, abandoned to die," Mara defended. "And over the years, he has proven himself worthy of trust." "Dragons trusting humans," Azurin scoffed. "Have you forgotten what they did to our hatchlings? To our mates?" The tension in the air grew thick. The Haven delegation had drawn closer together, while the dragons loomed larger, their postures increasingly aggressive. Ash could feel the fragile peace beginning to fracture. "Please," he addressed the dragons. "These humans aren't hunters. They're builders. They want to restore the world, not destroy it further." "And what is this?" Verda suddenly asked, her attention drawn to the document cases on the table. She extended her neck, sniffing. "This smells of dragon blood. Old, preserved." Owen Porter paled visibly. Before anyone could stop her, Verda used a talon to flip open one of the cases, revealing vials of dried dragon blood and what appeared to be research notes. "Treachery," Solarius roared. "They bring dragon parts to a peace meeting." Chaos erupted. Ryan Mitchell pulled a concealed weapon, firing at Solarius, but merely grazing the golden dragon's scales. Azurin retaliated immediately, her flame breath setting the table ablaze. The human delegation scattered as Verda and Solarius advanced. "Stop!" Ash shouted, positioning himself between the dragons and retreating humans. "This solves nothing." "Move aside, hatchling," Solarius growled. "You may carry dragon milk in your veins, but you cannot understand centuries of betrayal." Natalie had pulled a communication device from her pocket and was shouting orders. In the distance, vehicles roared to life, Haven's defense forces responding. "Mara, help me," Ash pleaded, turning to his guardian who had yet to join the attack. "Everything we've worked for is falling apart." Mara's expression was conflicted, torn between loyalty to her clutchmates and her bond with Ash. "The humans brought dragon blood to the meeting, Ash." Porter was studying it, planning something. "Not all of them knew," Ash insisted. "Natalie is sincere. Most of Haven wants peace." As armed vehicles approached from the direction of Haven, and the three dragons prepared for full-scale battle, Ash made a desperate decision. He drew deeply into himself, focusing on the dragon essence that flowed through his veins, and then exhaled the largest flame he had ever produced, not at either side, but straight upward, a pillar of fire that split the sky. "Enough," he roared, his voice carrying a dragon's resonance. "I will not let either side destroy what we've built." The sheer spectacle halted both parties momentarily. In the silence that followed, Ash's skin shimmered with more pronounced scales, his eyes glowing with inner fire. "Look at me," he said, turning slowly to address both groups. "I am what happens when dragons and humans come together instead of tearing each other apart. I am proof that we are stronger together than divided." He faced the dragons first. "You have suffered. You have lost hatchlings, mates, territories. Your anger is justified. But these humans are not all hunters. Many of them were born after the wars, after the hunts. They're trying to build something better. Then he turned to the humans. And you? Some of you still see dragons as resources to be exploited. Porter's research proves that. But that thinking destroyed the world once already. Dragons are not your salvation through what you can take from them, but through what you can build together. The armed vehicles had stopped a safe distance away. Natalie stepped forward cautiously. Porter acted without council approval, she said, her voice steady despite her fear. His research was unauthorized. We do want peace, Ash, but trust must be earned on both sides. Solarius snorted disbelievingly, but Mara moved to stand beside Ash. My clutchmate speaks truth, she told her fellow dragons. This human child has shown me another way is possible. I have lived alongside him for 15 years without betrayal. One human, Azurin countered. One exception. Every change begins with one exception, Ash argued. Every new path starts with a single step. For a moment, it seemed the fragile peace might still shatter. Then, unexpectedly, Verda lowered her massive head to study Ash more closely. You truly carry dragon essence, she said, her voice softer than before. I can sense it in you. It has changed you profoundly. She looked to Mara. Sister, what you have done is unprecedented. Perhaps there is wisdom in it we have been too angry to see. I make no promises, Solarius rumbled. But for Mara's sake, and for the sake of this strange hatchling she has raised, I will withhold judgment. For now, slowly, painfully, the confrontation de-escalated. Owen Porter was taken into Haven custody for his unauthorized research. The dragons agreed to retreat to Mara's cave system temporarily while further talks were arranged. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was a beginning. In the weeks that followed, Ash worked tirelessly as intermediary between Haven and the dragons. Progress was slow, setbacks frequent. Centuries of mistrust couldn't be erased in days or weeks. But small victories accumulated. Verda using her flame to help purify Haven's contaminated soil, allowing crops to grow more abundantly. Solarius teaching human scouts safer routes through the Wasteland. Azurin, most reluctant of all, eventually agreeing to provide scales that, when processed properly, created filters for Haven's water system far more effective than anything they had developed before. In exchange, Haven expanded its laws against dragon hunting to neighboring settlements, shared valuable information about weather patterns and radiation storms, and offered a portion of each harvest as tribute. They also began to record dragon knowledge, history, language, sciences that had been preserved through generations of oral tradition. 6 months after the first meeting, Haven hosted a ceremony unlike any in living memory. In the center of the settlement, humans and dragons gathered together without weapons or fear. Children who had once been taught to hide at the first sign of a dragon's shadow now sat wide-eyed as Mara told stories of the ancient world. Haven engineers worked alongside Solarius to design new buildings that incorporated dragon fire in their construction, creating structures stronger than any since before the wars. Ash watched it all with a fullness in his heart he had never experienced before. He was neither fully human nor dragon, but something new, a bridge between worlds, the first of what he hoped would be many. You were right, Mara told him privately as they observed a group of Haven children cautiously offering fruit to Verda. Some humans can change. Some dragons too. We all can, Ash replied. If we choose to. That night, as they returned to the cave that had been his childhood home, Ash asked the question that had lingered since Mara's revelation about his origins. The settlement that sacrificed me, do you think they ever regretted it? Ever wondered what became of me? Mara considered this. Perhaps. Or perhaps they believed their sacrifice had worked, keeping dragons away from their territory through some mystical bargain. Either way, Ash said, I'm glad it was you who found me. As am I, little one, Mara replied, using the endearment from his childhood. Though you are not so little anymore. Indeed, at 16, Ash stood tall and strong, his body continuing to develop in ways neither fully human nor dragon. What other changes the dragon milk would bring as he matured, only time would tell. But he faced the future without fear, confident in his unique position between two worlds. 1 year after the first meeting, as the alliance between Haven and the dragons had grown stronger, scouts reported an astonishing discovery: dragon eggs, hidden in a remote cavern beyond the wasteland's edge. Abandoned during the height of the hunting, they had been preserved in a state of suspended development by ancient dragon magic. They can be revived, Mara explained when the eggs were carefully transported to their cave system. With proper care, proper conditions, and dragon milk. The implications were enormous. Not just for dragonkind, whose extinction had seemed inevitable, but for the fragile alliance they had built. New hatchlings would need protection, education, integration into a world where humans and dragons coexisted. It won't be easy,